Believe it or not, in 1996, Jean Bonnet's murder occurs. And it is a story that has driven people into books, movies, and, of course, no one ever got what they ever thought was a successful conclusion. Please say good morning and welcome back to 630 KHOW. It's my colleague at the time. We're trying to get a hold of Carol McKinley with all kinds of other people as well. And we spoke with Boulder DA Stan Garnett. He said he'll do the show with us next week about the case because, as you know, he has reopened the case. This, of course, from Fox News. Julie Hayden. Jules, good morning. Happy New Year, man. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Peter. Same to you.
When did you go on the story?
The next morning. I guess they, I guess the morning. I mean, they found the body early in the morning, and we were there later that day.
Yeah, the morning of the 26th.
And I think at the time, nobody really, at the time it was at the assignment desk. I remember it was, sort of a skeletal staff because of the holidays. And, they called them like, we got something in Boulder, or maybe a missing kid, a kidnapped kid, or something. And so we went, and it took a while for, no idea, who John Ramsey was or anything like that. Just, go to Boulder, and we did. And I think at the time didn't even realize, it was just maybe a missing kid. And, in the news business, that's not uncommon. And almost always the kids are found next door or, someplace else in the house or something like that. So at the time, no idea we were about to launch into the story that it became.
Yeah, I went back and I kept, a lot, because this is the one hot story. There's been, a dozen, and we're in the middle of an interesting one now. I was talking to somebody about it last night. The Pat Sullivan story is it's like has all of these tremendous variables in the story. But I remember that morning as well, and so I went back into the archives, and I've kept dirty old notes from those days because I was in court 3 different times about this, only because I had seen the note. And remember that big story when they went up to Evergreen, that guy tried to buy the note, the guy from the tabloids and everything.
Right.
And actually, my son ended up in court because he had answered the door. I mean, everybody got into a sort of a tailspin over this. But it was 10 o'clock in the morning when they saw the body for the first time. I'm looking at my notes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess early in the morning, news-wise. You know what I mean? The shift starts at 9, and it was, it took a while for it to filter out. It was shortly after, but not immediately. Cause, and I think, back in that day, it was a whole kind of different scanner era. They heard it, talk about it on the police scanners. Now it's pretty hard the way they have the scanner set up to hear this kind of thing. But yeah, at the time they did, and they said, well, there's nothing else going on. Why don't you guys go to Boulder and see what it is? And we get there, and by that time, it's become clear that there is a missing child. And then the whole thing sort of starts snowballing pretty rapidly.
The story that I always believe that the story was kept alive because of seemingly endless amounts of video of this little girl who really was just a little girl who looked like, if you saw her face when they made her up, she looked like she was 25 years old or 22 years old. And, and that's when people started to discover these crazy pageants, these beauty pageants.
I agree. And actually years later, sort of coincidentally, my daughter ended up taking dancing lessons from the same, and I can't remember off the top of my head, can't recall the name, but the same dance company. But I think you're absolutely right. For any kind of story, for TV purposes, you need pictures. But I think there were so many pictures of this little girl floating around out there, and there were. There were just so many elements to this story. I think, it was in Boulder, it was this family, then the way the whole thing was handled, just and the way the family reacted, just fueled everything. But I think you're absolutely dead on that. There were so many pictures, and there was something, frankly, for lack of a better word, creepy about the pictures from the very beginning.
Oh,
it was hard to put your finger on, but there was I don't know what you would say. Number one, the girl was just good at a very young age. There was a presence to the child, but also, I don't even know how you would say it. There was sort of an adultness to her movement, her look, and everything.
Remember watching her perform, and it was, for the lack of a better word, it was sexual.
Right. You're right.
I
There
mean,
was a
Patsy.
coyness that was beyond what a 6-year-old
Have
would
you
do.
have you ever watched what is it, Toddlers and Tiaras, or that show? It's on almost every afternoon, or I think when I get a chance, and it's creepier now to watch it, given because I never paid much attention to some, and they seem to always be. I apologize, overweight mothers no, I'm sure.
Hey, my daughter was in dances, but no, you're absolutely right. Uh-huh.
And they, and these, I mean, these kids have just nasty little temperaments to them, and they scream at their mothers and fathers, and
Yeah,
they
and I
make
think
them up, and
they do, and this is, I mean, on one hand, I mean, I would raise a couple points. Number one, that's a reality show, so on the one hand, they cast for that. They're not looking for your average little 6-year-old in that show. But back in 1996, you didn't have shows like that. I mean, it was an extremely unusual video. You didn't see that kind of thing. You didn't see the kids made up like that. And I think again, it went beyond that. Because I have a daughter who was roughly the same age, and we had videotapes of her dancing, and it's nothing
nothing
like
like
that.
that.
And
Nothing.
I think that was something that everybody reacted to. It's a subtle thing, and it's hard to put your finger on. But I think any parent that saw that was like, "Whoa, that's weird,"
And even now, when I watch toddlers, and we can open up the phone lines of people who watch Toddlers and Tiaras, but it's creepy,
Yes.
and the dresses. Not little girls. I mean,
Right.
who am I? But little girls don't wear that kind of stuff.
No. Well, and you and I both know, I mean, sadly, there are websites and there are, I guess, I mean, I've done a story before where these kids, the pageant kids, they can go on a website and you can help, quote, sponsor the kid, and you get pictures of the kid. Well, we know who wants pictures of someone else's 6-year-old in a tiara. Nobody nice when you get right down to it. So, yeah, that whole area is, I think, fraught with peril, to put it mildly.
Well, Dan Caplis talked about that at great length, and other people talked about it at great length of, how off the hook Patsy Ramsey was about her daughter. And as you know, it was one of the great bar trivia questions of all time. There's only been two states that ever had sisters as representing the state, in the Miss America contest. And one, of course, was West Virginia. It was Patsy Ramsey and her sister, Crazy Aunt Pam. And the other state, I think, was like Arkansas or Mississippi. But Patsy Ramsey was was Miss West Virginia, and followed up, I think, the next year or the year after that by her sister Aunt Pam, Crazy Aunt Pam.
Right.
And they were sisters, and their purpose. They actually talked about, the Jambonnet, that they wanted her. Her goal in life was to be Miss America, and
Right.
And then Patsy's her mother, not her mother-in-law, her mother was involved in that stuff too, and I looked at. I mean, I remember that was the first that people went, what are these people doing? And
Right. It was, well, there was just a level of intensity to it that went way beyond, I think, what most people would consider normal, and probably what most people would consider healthy for a 6-year-old. Because if you remember, as more videotapes
they kept
coming
appearing.
out,
Yeah.
and not only that, but then videotapes like with Patsy in them. I remember we got one. I actually
The
think
Christmas
at the time-
tape. That Christmas tape. Yeah.
That was just very creepy.
It was really creepy.
And it was just, and again, and it's hard to put your finger on, but here is somebody where just the intensity about decorating your house for Christmas went way above and beyond anything that would, again, a normal family would think, oh, this is normal or this is healthy.
I mean, they're all. I mean, now you get these. Actually, my kids gave me one for Christmas, and they're called ugly holiday family pictures or something. It's like some guy with a, and they had that picture, and it's like they're all dressed alike.
Right. And that just kind of goes, we had our baby's picture taken, and, you buy an outfit, you take into, some kind of mall place where they take your picture, and that's about the extent you go to it.
No,
but I mean,
they send out videos.
Right. And they send, and I mean, who really wants to look at somebody else's family video? But